Afternoon, everyone. Well, today I'm going to cover a couple of stories on my videos, so, here we go. First one is this one from the Toronto Star. Quote, October is now Islamic Heritage Month in Ontario. I had no idea. This was posted on October 6, 2016, and it took me almost 2 years to find out that October is Islamic Heritage Month in Ontario. That's crazy. I wonder when we're going to get a shared Canadian Values Month. Wouldn't that be nice? Couldn't we could all celebrate shared Canadian values together, couldn't we? Wouldn't that be wonderful? Shared Canadian values. Anyway, that's the first story. The second story is this, and I will, I'll let the minister update us on what he is talking about. Here we go.
The Honourable Member for Brantford Brant.
The Prime Minister has failed to give injured veterans the support they have earned. Remember, the Prime Minister has told veterans that they are asking for too much. Yet these Liberals are giving a man convicted of murdering a police officer, a man who is not a veteran himself, money meant for veterans. He killed her, put her body in a compost bin, and dumped her under a bridge. When will the Prime Minister step in and stop this outrageous abuse of veterans' benefits?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Here's something that we saw for 10 years the Conservative government did not acknowledge. When a man or woman serves in Canada's armed forces or in the RCMP, their whole family serves with them. We have made it a priority to not only improve benefits and services for our nation's veterans, but for their families as well. Since 2016, investments have totaled $10 billion for veterans programs and services, including the hiring of over 470 staff to increase delivery capacity. In regard to the tragic and terrible case the member opposite mentioned, due to laws around privacy and confidentiality.
Honourable.
So he hides behind confidentiality and privacy laws to not comment on what's going on. So I posted this on the 19th, which is when this question period is from. And, well, there's more information. So here's the Global News article about this. Tories to force Liberals to vote on revoking veterans' benefits to convicted killer Chris Garner. So down here, here's what that was all about. Quote, opposition began debate Tuesday morning on a motion calling on Veterans Affairs Minister Seamus O'Regan to revoke the veterans' benefits being given to Christopher Garner to pay for the cost of treatment for the post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, he claims he got for murdering an off-duty police officer in 2015. Garner is serving a life sentence and will not be eligible for parole before 13.45 years served for the crime. Despite never having served in the Canadian Forces, his application for benefits was approved because his father is a veteran who told the court that getting PTSD treatment for his son would help him too. Well, isn't that nice? Isn't that fantastic? Maybe a little bit of, discretion about who gets it, the murderer who killed a cop. Maybe you say, I'm sorry, man, maybe counseling or hypnosis, but giving your son benefits that should go to other veterans is not in the cards, right? Maybe. Anyway, link will be in the description. You can read the rest of that story yourself. Here's another story about disabled veterans. Disabled veterans taking pension lawsuit to Supreme Court. Now, I hadn't heard too much about this. I kind of heard small things here and there, and this video gives a good synopsis, so we will listen to the video.
Rights of wounded soldiers will be decided by the Supreme Court. A group of disabled veterans are launching a legal challenge in a fight over their pensions. They say Canada has failed to fulfill its sacred obligation, that those hurt in service should be taken care of when they return. Here's CTV's Mercedes Stevenson.
Frustration and anguish on Parliament Hill for a group of wounded Canadian veterans.
We're appealing to the Supreme Court because we believe we have no choice.
The former soldiers were all injured in Afghanistan and received lump sum payments instead of the lifetime pension they were promised when they signed up. While in opposition, the Liberals hammered the Harper government for fighting this lawsuit in court.
Will the Prime Minister live up to our sacred obligation, end this court battle, and start giving our veterans the help they deserve?
In 2015, Justin Trudeau campaigned with these veterans, known as the Equitas Group, vowing to restore pensions. Today, Major Mark Campbell, who lost his legs in Afghanistan, accused the Liberal government of breaking its promise and abandoning veterans.
But for the government to turn around and spend millions in tax dollars fighting us in the courts to avoid their basic responsibility of care is nothing short of a national disgrace.
The opposition seized on the issue in question period.
When will this Prime Minister stop fighting veterans?
Veterans asked for a pension for life option. We delivered.
In December, the Liberals unveiled what they billed as a return to pensions. But the veterans say it's a financial shell game and much less money than they were promised. For retired Corporal Aaron Bedard, the change in tune makes it painful to put on medals he was once proud of.
I'm not proud of them anymore. It breaks my heart. I feel betrayed, and every time I do outreach online, every single day, I am reminded of that betrayal.
Now, advocates say lives are on the line as stress and mental health issues mount, with concerns about an ongoing suicide epidemic.
That's the consequence. Eating a bullet.
The decision.
So, I mean, that's pretty clear. Here's the lifelong pension video. This is also, so this is what the Equitas group was fighting for. And this is another news article that gives a good synopsis as well.
The Liberals were also accused today of betraying Canada's wounded war veterans. In a stunning reversal, the party that promised to re-establish lifelong pensions is now taking the soldiers to court to deny them. CTV's Richard Madden explains.
Veterans call it a slap in the face that federal lawyers will resume a lawsuit to deny retroactive pensions to wounded soldiers. It breaks a key Liberal campaign promise to re-establish lifelong pensions as an option for our injured veterans.
And going back on the lawsuit, they made their campaign a lie.
Donald Sorotan represents 6 veterans in the class action lawsuit. He calls the government's sudden reversal a betrayal.
This position turning the candidates into liars and making liars of us when we said that to people that the Liberal Party was putting forward a platform that was acceptable to the veterans.
The 4-year legal challenge began under the former Conservative government. It argued Ottawa does not have a so-called sacred obligation to support veterans, a move that hurt the Conservative brand as champions of the military. And Trudeau, then the third-party leader, was quick to pounce.
Will the Prime Minister live up to our sacred obligation, end this court battle, and start giving our veterans the help they deserve?
So if I earn the right to serve your country, this country as your Prime Minister, no veteran will be forced to fight their own government for the support and compensation that they have earned. We will reinstate lifelong pensions and increase their value in line with the obligation we have made to those injured in the line of duty.
But that was then. Now Trudeau is defending a move he condemned in opposition.
Will the Prime Minister show a shred of decency and stop taking our veterans to court?
In a statement, the Veterans Minister wouldn't say why he chose to continue the lawsuit, only that the matter is now before the courts. Lisa.
All right. So, and I just wanted to go back over this because I thought it was very funny. Trudeau says, if you let me lead your country, I mean, our country.
So if I earn the right to serve your country, this country as your Prime Minister.
I mean, anyway, I'm not going to play it again, but I just thought it was so funny. Like, is he misspeaking or no? Okay, so court's refusal to hear benefits lawsuit is slap in the face. So this is fast forwarding for the whole Supreme Court case, and they didn't even hear it. They won in BC. The Equitas group won the right to be considered for a Supreme Court case, and then that was slapped down. So court's refusal to hear that, a slap in the face. Legal disputes involving veterans cost federal government $40 million over 2 years. What? $40 million over 2 years. This was posted in April of 2018. And it says, quote, the federal government spent more than $38 million on legal proceedings involving Canada's veterans over the past 2 years. $1.3 was spent on legal fees for 73 other cases. And so they're spending a lot of money. Trudeau further raised tensions with veteran community in February when he told a town hall meeting in Edmonton that his government couldn't afford to settle with some of them. Quote, why are we fighting certain veterans groups in court? Because they're asking for more than we are able to give right now, he said. And I'm not going to play that clip because we've seen that clip 100 million times and it's all over YouTube. And we all know exactly what kind of guy Justin Trudeau is, I think, right? At this point, everyone in Canada is pretty clear about the kind of guy Justin Trudeau is. And if you're not, well, keep watching, I guess. Okay, so this was posted today, September 25th, 2018, and Trudeau announces new office to push for private sector investments in developing countries. Well, that's interesting. I thought we didn't have any money to give our veterans, but let's see where we're going to spend this money. Okay, quote, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says Canada is setting up $20 million office with a mandate to persuade the private sector, including big pension and institutional investors, to invest in infrastructure projects in the developing world. Speaking at the United Nations on Monday, Mr. Trudeau encouraged the private sector to consider investments that support long-term prosperity in the developing world and for governments to mitigate the financial risks that comes with those investments. The office is part of Canada's commitment to the UN Sustainable Development Goals, an ambitious set of objectives focused on ending poverty, fighting inequality, and tackling climate change by 2030. The UN estimates that it will take $7 trillion to reach those goals. Quote, there are significant amounts of global capital out there looking for a place to invest. The challenges around risk, the challenges around not knowing what is a good investment are all over the place, Mr. Trudeau said during a 3-day visit to New York, where he is leading Canada's bid for a UN Security Council seat in 2021-22. That's the key right there. He's using this as another part of his application for a UN Security Council seat in 2021-22. That's what this is. Okay, the quote, back to the article. The new Toronto office will act as North American headquarters of the Global Infrastructure Hub. This organization, established by the G20 in 2014, works with governments, the private sector, and multilateral institutions to fund infrastructure projects around the world. From solar power in Morocco to a roadway design to relieve traffic in Argentina, the organization has coordinated numerous infrastructure projects in emerging markets. Mr. Trudeau said Canada is well-suited home for the new office, which would connect global capital to specific infrastructure projects and manage the risks, such as regulatory gaps and corruption. Really, we're gonna do that? What are we gonna point to as an example of a success that we've ever had in doing that? The NAFTA negotiations? Yeah, that's right. We're gonna fight corruption? Bull. Absolute garbage. Sorry. Oh my God. Okay, associated with the investing in the developing world. Yeah, there's lots of corruption in the developing world, and that is absolutely true. There is. But man, there's another government that I can think of. I'm thinking of them, and they're really close. That's right, our federal government. They're corrupt as. Oh my. So frustrating. Okay, back to the article. Quote, Canada happens to have a significant expertise in building infrastructure around the world, whether it's our pension funds or private capital or engineering firms or just our engagement around the world. These things are things we've been able to do, Mr. Trudeau said. Canada's largest pension funds are already investing in infrastructure projects globally. Wait, what? Back to the article. For instance, the Canadian Pension Plan Investment Board, which has a retirement asset of $366.6 billion, has infrastructure investments in Peru, Chile, India, and Mexico. The Ontario Teachers Pension Plan, with assets of $189.5 billion, has investments in South American water companies. That's strange. Okay, back to the article. However, not everyone is on board with Trudeau government's plan. Conservative foreign affairs critic Aaron O'Toole says it's inappropriate for the government to be influencing pension and investment funds, a concern he has raised directly with Canada's ambassador to the UN, Marc-Andre Blanchard. Quote, we're talking people's retirement. Keep Justin Trudeau's politics out of it. Keep the UN out of it. The world-class investment managers will decide if a solar investment somewhere or an investment in a developing or emerging economy is appropriate. They should not feel even the gentle nudge of government, Ms. O'Toole said. Quote, their goal is not to help Justin Trudeau with his Security Council bid. Their goal is to maximize the return of pensioners. Right, the return is their money returned, right? So if you give the investment board $100 and they invest in something and the investment board gives you back $700, that's good. They give you back $1,400, that's better. If they give you back $1 million, that's even better, right? So you want them to invest it in the best case possible, not in some crazy scheme. And if you want to hear about schemes, look up the Liberals' 15-year spending spree. That was a scheme perpetrated onto the Ontario people. Anyway, then that's what you get, right? So, ridiculous. Trudeau pushes Canada's back narrative with Mali UN peacekeeping mission. Okay, so in addition to having the global infrastructure hub in Canada and $20 million for that office and presumably helping mitigate risk, we're also sending peacekeepers to the most dangerous mission in the world right now. That's fantastic. Link will be in the description. Canadian soldiers well prepared for a risk of injury or death in Mali mission, officials said. Yeah, it's a really dangerous mission. And this is July 5th. So we're using Canadian soldiers pretty well, casually, I think, really, when you consider the frosty relationship from the beginning of this video. This is posted from 2017. Little to be gained by pursuing UN Security Council seat. Yeah, and here's, I thought was kind of funny. So, quote from this article from 2017, so this isn't 2018 numbers, but quote, there's also a financial cost to pursuing a Security Council seat. Even the government's own numbers indicate that over $500,000 has been spent on the campaign, but that does not appear to include the cost of government workers who have been tasked with working full-time on this bid. So I wonder how many government workers are working on this. And last year, we've already spent $500,000 on this without including the workers? That's wild. So here's a question for Justin Trudeau at the 2017 UN, the same thing that's happening this week, but just happened last year, right? The meeting in New York.
The last time Canada ran a successful bid for a Security Council seat, at the outset of the bid, the government at the time articulated a very specific human security agenda, the responsibility to protect, the ICC, etc. What is something tangible you would do with a Security Council seat?
I think one of the things that certainly is on our minds as Canadians is how we can best help in the world. And the Security Council of the United Nations is a way to engage in important issues of the time and promote Canadian perspectives and Canadian values. I think one of the things that we've seen is there is an appetite for Canada's approach and Canada's solutions in terms of growing the middle class, in terms of promoting diversity as a strength. And I'm very pleased to see people responding positively to Canada's engagement in the world.
So what would you do with the Security Council seat? Tell people, oh, great question. Thanks for that. I will tell everybody on the UN that diversity is our strength. That's what you're going to do? Again, frustrating. TheStar.com printed on November 26, 2015, Canada gives United Nations $100 million for Syrian refugee relief. Man, there's a lot of money floating around if you're not in Canada. Article published on March 17, 2017, Canada to give $119 million in aid to Middle East and African countries suffering food crisis. Great. I mean, you don't want people to starve. Posted June 9th, 2018, Canada raises more than $3.8 billion for girls' education at G7. Oh my goodness, that's a lot of money. Girls, just like which girls? Canadian girls? Are we going to help Canadian girls be educated? To the article, printed by CBC, quote, that includes, the Canadian government announced at the G7 summit in Quebec that it has raised more than $3.8 billion in an effort with other countries to send the world's poorest girls to school. That includes a $400 million investment from Canada as part of the overall 3-year commitment, and also includes contributions from G7 partners in the World Bank. Canada, along with the European Union, Germany, Japan, and the United Kingdom, and the World Bank will partner on the funds, which will go towards supporting women acquiring job skills, improving teacher training to improve curriculum for girls, expanding the quality of data available on female education, and promoting more coordination between humanitarian partners. Yeah, that sounds really manageable, really measurable, really easy, like tracking 50,000 people you bring into your country, right? That sounds easy. Published August 2nd, 2018, Canada urged to do more as UN funding crisis deepens. What? Hold on a second. We've been sending hundreds of millions of dollars to you guys, and you're telling us you need more? This is posted by the CBC. It's never enough. And this is an opinion piece posted on May 7th, 2018 by the Globe and Mail. And the premise is silly, but I'm still going to read it because it's just silly, but I'm going to set it up. So the article title is, Remind Us, Why Does Canada Want a Seat on the UN Security Council? Okay. Imagine the following scenario. It's January 2021, and Donald Trump has just been inaugurated to serve his second term as the President of the United States. Enough Americans were willing to forgive Mr. Trump his sins and re-elect him, as they have done for every incumbent president who has presided over a stronger economy since the Second World War. Yeah, they're going to re-elect him. Just watch. Okay, back to the article. That same January, Canada is elected to the United Nations Security Council, achieving a major objective of Justin Trudeau's government. Canada is now, quote, back in the world, sitting at the big table with the world's power brokers, China, Russia, the United States, Britain, and France, and the 5 permanent members of the Security Council for the first time in 20 years. Later that year, some Latin American tin pot dictator raises Mr. Trump's ire. A now even more unrestrained and emboldened president authorizes a unilateral, quote, limited and targeted military intervention that is clearly aimed at regime change in this historic U.S. sphere of influence. This is why this is silly. It's a clear violation of international law and an affront to the values of the UN, a challenge to the United States allies. The Security Council is called into an emergency session. The United States is isolated on the council. What does Canada do? We cannot hide in that room, and Mr. Trump wants and expects Canada's support. Aside from the situation being silly, it points to a realistic situation a few years ago. Okay. Which raises a fundamental question. Why does Mr. Trudeau's government want so badly for Canada to be a member of the UN Security Council? It's not always in our interest to be a part of that club. A former Prime Minister, John Chrétien, told his Foreign Minister, Bill Graham, that in the lead up to the Iraq War in 2003, quote, "Thank God we're not on the UN Security Council. Our diplomats work all their careers to get us on the Security Council, but there are times like this when you don't want to be on it." For the foreign services, however, the reasons for pursuing a Security Council seat are powerful and worth the risks. Membership gives us prestige in the world, privilege, access on which one cannot put a price, knowledge and intelligence of global issues that we would not otherwise have, and some influence in the big global peace and security files. And we're not on the hook permanently for the blood and treasure that comes with being a real global power broker. It's a no-brainer. A Security Council seat is important enough to Mr. Trudeau's government that it has motivated, in part, its painstaking decision for Canada to take on a limited role in the United Nations, multidimensional integrated stabilization mission in Mali, the MINUSMA, which Ottawa likes to call, quote, peacekeeping. Participation in the MINUSMA, it is believed, will help Canada secure a seat on the council. Again, there's that Security Council seat coming up. Oddly, Mr. Trudeau's government seems to believe Canada will extract itself from MINUSMA, the most dangerous UN mission in the world today, in 12 months. Good luck with that, especially if you aim to get on the Security Council and if Canada's contribution of helicopters in Mali proves to be of real utility. To date, Canadians have been given no reason why the government is going to such lengths to win a Security Council seat. What is the agenda Canada wants to pursue through membership on the Council? The absence of rationale leaves the impression that for Canada, a seat on the Security Council is an end in itself rather than a means to an end. You know why I think that is? Because once you achieve that, the puppet master has his voice and he'll do what he wants with that vote on the Council, right? The person who's controlling Mr. Trudeau gets to say, yeah, vote for that, or don't vote for that, or support them in this one and don't support them in that one, or whatever. But buying your way with Canadian lives, Canadian treasure, and Canadian soldiers in Mali just to get a UN security seat and a vote for somebody else seems crazy. It seems wild. And what that gets for Canada, what that gets for real Canadians on a day-to-day, nobody has been able to explain to me, and I've been researching this for all day today. And maybe that's not enough. Maybe I need to dedicate a couple of days to this. But figuring out why we're spending hundreds of millions of dollars, sending it to the UN, and sending our soldiers who the Trudeau government is battling in court and saying, if you get injured in the line of duty as a Canadian military person, you are not entitled to being taken care of, despite all of our campaign promises. So it seems to me that on one side of things, the Canadian government would love to use Canada's money and its sons and daughters in military uniform to buy a seat on the Security Council, but it cannot explain to me why it wants that seat, what it's going to do. Telling the world that diversity is our strength, it's going to fall on deaf ears. Have you seen Europe? So this video turned out longer than I anticipated it being. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out the peoplespartyofcanada.ca and Maxime Bernier. I hope that he's the next Prime Minister of Canada. We need some sanity back in our politics. We need to have some of this nation-building money spent on Canadians within Canada. We need Maxime Bernier as the Prime Minister. Thanks for watching, everyone.